When your wife laughs at you in front of all the guests, calling you fat, you don't yet know that the worst is still ahead. I had always loved my craft. The dough, the aroma of fresh pastries, the satisfied faces of customers. It filled my life with meaning. My name was James, and I was a baker in Denver. For the past 5 years, I'd been working like crazy, taking double shifts, coming in on weekends, trying to provide for my family. Yes, I had gained extra weight. When you wake up at 3 in the morning to knead dough, and come home at 8 in the evening, there's no time left for the gym. Maria, my wife, worked as a nail technician. We'd been married for almost 10 years, and we had a 7-year-old daughter, Emma. I thought everything was fine. Sure, Maria sometimes joked about my weight, but I took it as encouragement. Until that party happened. It was my colleague Tom's birthday. We gathered at his house, drinking, laughing. The atmosphere was wonderful until I brought Maria her second glass of wine. She was already a bit tipsy, and was talking with several of our friends. "James brought me another drink," she said loudly. "I guess he wants me to become as fat as he is." Everyone went quiet. I froze in place with the glass in my hand. "Seriously, look at him," Maria continued, clearly not noticing my face. My friend asked why I'm still with him, and I say, habit, I guess. Though I don't have the strength to look at his fat rear end anymore. The laughter was nervous, forced. Someone tried to change the subject, but I had already heard everything. The feeling was like being doused with cold water. "Mar, that's not funny," I said quietly. "Oh, relax," she waved me off. "It's just a joke." But her eyes said otherwise. There was no warmth in them, no love. There was only contempt. That evening we drove home in silence. I tried to talk, but she remained silent. And the next morning, when I returned from the bakery, her things were packed. "I can't do this anymore," Maria said coldly. "I need time for myself. I'll stay with my sister." "Mar, wait." I felt panic rising. "I can change. I'll go to the gym, lose weight." "I love you." "Don't," she answered sharply. "I need a break." She grabbed her suitcase and left, not even hugging Emma, who stood in the hallway with tear-stained eyes. The next 2 weeks were hell. I tried to contact Maria, but she responded in monosyllables. I actually did sign up for a gym and started running in the mornings. Emma constantly asked when Mom would come back, and I had to make up excuses. And then everything fell apart. One evening I was scrolling through Instagram, trying to distract myself. I went to the page of my old friend Mike, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. He had posted photos from a bar in downtown Denver. And in one of them, in the background, I saw Maria. She was sitting very close to some young guy, and he had his hand on her thigh. They were laughing. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I zoomed in on the photo. It was definitely her. I looked at the date. The picture was taken 3 days ago, on the day when she said she was too tired to meet Emma and me at the park. I took a screenshot and began my investigation. I looked through Mike's other photos. In several old shots, taken months ago, Maria was also there with the same guy. So this had been going on for a long time. A very long time. A thought came to me that at first seemed crazy. I logged into our joint banking app. What I saw shocked me. Over the past 6 months, Maria had withdrawn almost $20,000 from our account. In small amounts, $500 to $1,000 at a time, but regularly. Money that I had earned working 14 hours a day. I didn't just feel pain, I felt anger. Cold, rational anger. The next day I found a private detective. His name was Mr. Bronson, and he specialized in such cases. I showed him the photos and gave him all the information about Maria. "Give me a week," he said. That week dragged on for an eternity. I continued working, taking care of Emma, but inside everything was burning. I barely slept, barely ate. When Bronson finally called, I was ready for anything. But not for this. "His name is Roger," the detective said. 30 years old, works as a plumber. They met at a bar on Colfax Street about 8 months ago. They meet regularly. I have photographs, video recordings, evidence of their correspondence. I was able to obtain this through a source. And one more thing, Mr. James. He paused. "What?" She was buying him gifts. Expensive ones. A new phone, clothes, even partially paid for repairs to his truck. All with your money. I just sat in silence, clutching the phone. "I'll send you a detailed report by email," Bronson added. "And Mr. James, I'm sorry." I thanked him and hung up. Then I stood up, poured myself some whiskey, and drank it in one gulp. Not because I wanted to get drunk. I wanted to feel anything other than emptiness. The next morning I went to a lawyer. I took all the evidence with me, photos, bank statements, the detective's report. The lawyer carefully examined everything. "You have a very strong position," he said. "With such evidence of financial fraud and infidelity, you'll get full custody of your daughter, the apartment, and most of the joint property. I'll have the documents ready in 3 days." Those 3 days I lived in some kind of trance. I went to work, smiled at customers, picked Emma up from school, and in the evenings, I reread the detective's report and looked at the photos. Maria and Roger at a restaurant. Maria and Roger by his truck. Maria and Roger kissing by her car. The divorce papers were ready on Friday. I picked them up and put them in an envelope. Now all I had to do was wait. Maria returned on Sunday. She walked into the apartment as if nothing had happened, with a broad smile. "James!" "Emma!" she shouted. Emma ran out of her room and threw herself at her. I stood by the kitchen table, watching this scene. "I missed you so much." Maria hugged our daughter. "I'm sorry, Mommy needed a break, but now everything's fine." She approached me, still smiling. "James, listen, that thing at the party, it was a stupid joke. I didn't mean it. You know I love you." I remained silent. "Come on, don't sulk," she patted me on the shoulder. "Let's forget about it. By the way, I saw such a beautiful purse in a store. Red leather, on sale for only $2,000. You'll give me the money, right?" I slowly nodded. "Of course. Wait here." I went to the bedroom, took the envelope, and returned. Maria stood with an expectant smile. Emma had already gone to her room. "Here." I held out the envelope to her. She tore it open, still smiling, thinking there was money inside. Then her face changed. It went pale. What is this?" "Divorce papers," I answered calmly. "Sign them." "James, have you lost your mind?" She threw the papers on the floor. "Over one stupid joke?" "Not because of the joke, Maria. Because of Roger." She froze. Panic flashed in her eyes. I don't know who you're." "Plumber, 30 years old. You've been seeing each other for 8 months. Bar on Colfax. Want me to continue?" Maria's face turned red. "You were spying on me? You're sick. You stole $20,000 from me." I spoke quietly but firmly. "Money that I earned while you were having fun with your lover. You bought him gifts with my money. You lied to me for months." "James, I can explain everything. Don't bother. I have all the evidence. Photos, bank statements, records. My lawyer says I'll get the apartment, custody of Emma, and compensation. And you'll get only what you're entitled to by law, which is almost nothing after your fraud." Maria grabbed her phone. "I'll call my lawyer." "You can't." "I can. And I will. Sign the papers, Maria. It's already decided." She stood there, trembling with anger and fear. Then she abruptly grabbed her bag and ran to the door. "You'll regret this," she screamed. "I'll take everything. I'll take Emma." "Try it," I answered coldly. The door slammed. I stood in the silence of our apartment, feeling an enormous weight lift off me. Not physical weight, the kind that had been pressing on my soul all these months. Emma came out of her room. "Dad, what happened? Why did Mom run away?" I crouched down to be at eye level with her. "Mom and Dad won't be together anymore, sweetie. But I'll always be with you. Always." She cried, and I hugged her tightly. The following months were difficult. Maria actually did hire a lawyer and tried to fight, but the evidence was irrefutable. The trial went quickly, too quickly for her. I got the apartment, full custody of Emma, and Maria had to pay me compensation for the stolen money. The most interesting thing happened after the trial. I accidentally found out from mutual friends that Roger had dumped Maria as soon as he learned about the divorce. It turned out he liked the money, not her. When the financial flow stopped, he disappeared. Maria is now renting a tiny room on the outskirts of Denver, working 2 jobs to pay off the debt. She sees Emma once every 2 weeks under my supervision. And me? I lost 20 kilograms. Not because of her, because of myself. I signed up with a therapist and started valuing my life. The bakery is thriving, Emma is happy, and for the first time in many years, I feel at peace. Sometimes, when I'm kneading dough at 3 in the morning, I think about that party, about her words, about the guests' laughter, and I smile, because that evening became the beginning not of my end, but of hers. But let me tell you more about what happened during those brutal months. The details that kept me awake at night, the moments that tested every ounce of my strength, and how I methodically dismantled the life Maria had built on lies. After I discovered the truth, I became a different person. Not bitter, not vengeful in the traditional sense, just coldly efficient. Every morning I woke up at 2:45 a.m., just like always. I'd shower, dress in my white baker's uniform, and drive through the empty streets of Denver to the bakery. The city looked different in those pre-dawn hours. Peaceful. Honest. Unlike the life I'd been living. At work, I threw myself into perfecting my craft. I experimented with new recipes. A rosemary olive oil bread that became our bestseller, croissants with a lamination technique I'd been too tired to try before, and a sourdough starter I named Phoenix, because I was rising from the ashes of my old life. My boss, Mr. Patterson, noticed the change. "James, these are incredible," he said one morning, biting into one of my new creations. "What's gotten into you?" "Just focusing on what matters," I replied, and it was true. For years, I'd been working to provide for Maria's increasingly expensive tastes. The designer clothes, the spa days, the brunches with her friends at overpriced restaurants. I'd thought I was building a life. I was actually funding my own betrayal. Mr. Bronson, the detective, kept me updated regularly. Each report was like a knife twist, but I needed to know everything. Maria and Roger had met at Murphy's Bar, a dive on East Colfax that Maria had claimed to hate. "Too rough," she'd always said when I suggested we go there. Apparently, it was perfect for meeting a man whose main qualification was that he wasn't me. The detective's surveillance revealed their pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Maria would tell me she was working late. "Holiday season, everyone wants their nails perfect," she'd say. Instead, she was meeting Roger. Sometimes at his apartment in Aurora, sometimes at cheap motels on the interstate. The credit card statements showed it all. Our card. My money. What hurt most wasn't just the betrayal, it was the calculation behind it. Maria had been systematically stealing from our joint account for 8 months. Small amounts at first, then larger ones as she got bolder. 1,000 here for a new phone for Roger. 800 there for some mechanic tools he needed. 500 for a romantic dinner at a restaurant she'd never taken me to. I made spreadsheets. Documented everything. Became obsessed with proving not just the infidelity, but the financial devastation she'd caused. My lawyer, Janet Morrison, was impressed. "Most people come to me with suspicions and hurt feelings," she said during one of our meetings. "You're coming with a complete case file. James, this is extraordinary." "I'm a baker," I told her. "I follow recipes. This is just another recipe for justice." Janet smiled grimly. "Well, this recipe is going to serve you well. Colorado is an equitable distribution state, but with this level of financial misconduct, you're looking at getting essentially everything. The apartment, your daughter, and she'll owe you for what she stole." During this time, Emma became my anchor. Every day after school, I'd pick her up, and we'd talk about her day. I never spoke badly about Maria. That wasn't fair to Emma, but I also started preparing her for the changes coming. We'd stop for ice cream, go to the park, and I'd ask her about her dreams, her fears, her hopes. I realized I'd missed so much of her life while working those endless hours. "Dad, you're different now," Emma said one evening as we played board games. "You're more here." "I am here, sweetheart. I always will be." She smiled, and in that moment, I knew that whatever happened next, I'd already won the only thing that mattered. The hardest part was maintaining normalcy while my world was falling apart. At the bakery, I'd smile and chat with regular customers. Mrs. Chun, who came in every morning for a baguette and black coffee. The construction workers who bought day-old donuts by the dozen. The young couple planning their wedding cake. They all saw Baker James, reliable, friendly, slightly overweight but always cheerful. None of them saw the man who spent his lunch breaks reviewing detective reports, who memorized bank statements, who was planning the systematic destruction of his lying wife's comfortable life. Mr. Bronson provided video evidence too. I watched it once, Maria and Roger at a restaurant, sharing a bottle of wine, laughing. Her hand on his arm, his hand on her thigh. The casual intimacy that should have been ours. I watched it once, saved it to 3 different hard drives, and never looked at it again. I didn't need to torture myself. I just needed to be prepared. The detective also discovered something else. Roger wasn't exactly the prize Maria thought he was. He had a history, not criminal, but messy. 2 ex-girlfriends who'd left him after discovering he was borrowing money with no intention of paying it back. A habit of moving from woman to woman, always finding someone who'd support his lifestyle. Maria wasn't special to him. She was just convenient. "He's a user," Bronson said bluntly. He saw an easy mark, married woman, access to money, probably complaining about her husband. Classic scenario. When the money stops, he'll disappear. I filed that information away. It would be useful later. The 3 days waiting for the divorce papers felt like 3 years. I'd go through the motions, work, pick up Emma, make dinner, help with homework, tuck her in. Then I'd sit in the living room, in the apartment Maria and I had chosen together 10 years ago, and I'd plan. I thought about the first time we met. I was 24, working at a smaller bakery downtown. She came in looking for a birthday cake, and I recommended our chocolate raspberry torte. She bought it, came back the next week to thank me, and 6 months later we were engaged. She was beautiful, vivacious, full of life. Or so I thought. Maybe she was always this person, and I just couldn't see it. Our wedding had been small but perfect. Or what I thought was perfect. Her friends, my family who'd flown in from Oregon. We'd promised to love each other in sickness and health, for richer or poorer. She'd cried during her vows. Were those tears real? Had any of it been real? Emma was born a year later. I still remembered holding her in the hospital, this tiny perfect person, and promising to give her the world. Maria had looked exhausted but happy. We'd been happy then. I was sure of it. Wasn't I? When had it changed? When had I become the fat husband she mocked at parties? When had she decided I wasn't enough? When had she met Roger and decided that a plumber who lived in a rundown apartment in Aurora was better than the man who worked himself to exhaustion to provide for her? The papers arrived on Friday afternoon. Janet's office had done a thorough job. The divorce petition, the motion for custody, the financial claims with all the evidence attached, the restraining order that would prevent her from accessing our joint accounts. Everything meticulously prepared and devastating in its completeness. When you serve her with these, Janet said, her world is going to explode. Are you ready for that? I've been ready for weeks, I told her. But I wasn't going to just serve her the papers. I was going to wait for the perfect moment. Call it petty, call it revenge, but I needed her to understand. To really understand what she'd thrown away. That weekend, I deep cleaned the apartment. Threw away anything that reminded me of happier times. Photos, gifts, little mementos from vacations we'd taken. Emma helped, though she didn't understand why. Are we redecorating? She asked. Something like that, I said. New beginnings. I also went through Maria's things that she'd left behind in her rush to move out. Her jewelry box, her clothes, her cosmetics. I didn't touch any of it, but I photographed everything and made an inventory. If she tried to claim I'd stolen or damaged her property, I'd have proof. Sunday morning, I made Emma's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes with whipped cream. We ate together, talking about her upcoming school play. She was going to be a tree in the school's production of Into the Woods, and she was thrilled. Will Mom come to watch? She asked. I don't know, sweetie, but I'll be there. Front row. Promise? Promise. Around noon, I heard a car pull up outside. My heart rate increased, but I kept my face neutral. I heard footsteps on the stairs, then a key in the lock. Maria walked in, all smiles and cheerfulness, as if the past 2 weeks hadn't happened. What followed, her fake apology, her request for money for a purse, my revelation about Roger, her panic and anger, it all played out exactly as I'd envisioned. But what I didn't expect was how calm I felt. How completely at peace with my decision. After she stormed out, after I comforted Emma, after the apartment was quiet again, I sat down and called my parents in Oregon. Mom, I said when she answered, I need to tell you something. I explained everything. The mockery, the betrayal, the theft, the divorce. My mother cried. My father, a man who rarely showed emotion, said quietly, I'm proud of you, son, for having the strength to walk away. I didn't walk away, Dad. She left. I'm just making sure she can't come back. The court date was set for 6 weeks later. In that time, Maria tried everything. She hired a lawyer, a cheap one who clearly realized quickly that he had an unwinnable case. She tried to call me, text me, sent messages through mutual friends. I responded only through Janet, and only when legally necessary. She tried to show up at the bakery once. Mr. Patterson, bless him, ran interference. Mrs. James, he said formally, I'm afraid you need to leave. This is a place of business. I need to talk to my husband. Your soon-to-be ex-husband is working. Please leave, or I'll call the police. She left, but not before causing a scene that all the customers witnessed. Mrs. Chun, my regular, came up to me afterward. James, she said quietly, I don't know what happened, but you deserve better than that. Thank you, Mrs. Chun. And your bread is still the best in Denver. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd felt in weeks. The court date arrived. I wore my best suit, one I'd bought years ago and hadn't been able to fit into for a long time. It fit perfectly now. 20 pounds lost through stress, grief, and determination to rebuild myself. Maria showed up with her lawyer, looking defiant. But as Janet presented our case, the photos, the bank statements, the detective's report, Roger's history of using women for money, I watched Maria's face crumble. Her lawyer tried to argue that I'd been neglectful, that my work hours had driven her away, but the judge wasn't buying it. Mr. James worked to provide for his family, Judge Richardson said. Mrs. James systematically stole from the marital assets to fund an affair. The evidence is overwhelming. The ruling was everything Janet had promised. I got the apartment, full custody of Emma, with Maria getting supervised visitation every other weekend. She was ordered to pay back the $20,000 she'd stolen, plus legal fees. The only thing she kept was her car and her personal belongings. Outside the courthouse, Maria tried one last time. James, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. I love you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. A woman I'd given 10 years of my life to, who'd thrown it away for momentary excitement, and a man who'd already moved on to his next victim. No, Maria. You love what I provided. You never loved me. I walked away and didn't look back. The months that followed were about rebuilding. I continued therapy, worked on being the best father I could be to Emma, and threw myself into my craft. Mr. Patterson offered me a partnership in the bakery. You've proven yourself, he said. Your dedication, your creativity, your resilience. I want you as a partner, not just an employee. I accepted. Emma thrived. Without the tension of her parents' dying marriage, she blossomed. She excelled in school, made new friends, and our relationship deepened. Every night, we'd have dinner together, talk about our days, do homework, read together. The simple, beautiful routine of a father and daughter. Maria's supervised visits were awkward at first. She'd try to buy Emma's affection with gifts she couldn't afford, purchased on credit cards she was already drowning in. Emma, wise beyond her 7 years, saw through it. Dad, she said one night, Mom gave me this expensive doll, but I don't want it. Can we give it to the toy drive at school? Are you sure? I just want Mom to be Mom, not trying to be something she's not. I hugged her tightly. You're an amazing kid. You know that? Through the grapevine, our mutual friends who'd chosen sides, most chose mine once they heard the full story. I heard about Maria's downward spiral. Roger had indeed dumped her the moment he found out about the divorce and her financial situation. He'd moved on to another woman within weeks. Maria was working 2 jobs, her nail salon and waitressing at night, trying to pay back what she owed and keep herself afloat. Part of me felt pity. A small part. But mostly I felt nothing. She'd made her choices. These were the consequences. A year after the divorce was finalized, I was closing the bakery one evening when a woman walked in. She was attractive, probably in her mid-30s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. I'm sorry, we're closed, I said. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just moved to the neighborhood, and someone told me your sourdough is the best in Denver. I'll come back tomorrow. Wait, I found myself saying. I have 1 loaf left. It's yours. She smiled. Thank you. I'm Rachel, by the way. James. We talked for a few minutes. She was a teacher, newly relocated to Denver for a job at Emma's school, actually. She was funny, smart, and genuine. When she left with her bread, she turned back. Maybe I'll see you around, James. Maybe you will. I wasn't ready for anything yet. But for the first time since Maria had walked out, I felt something other than anger or emptiness. I felt possibility. That night, I made Emma's favorite dinner, homemade pizza with extra cheese. We ate, laughed, talked about her day. After she went to bed, I sat in the living room of our apartment, my apartment now, and reflected on the journey. I'd lost a wife but gained myself. I'd lost money but gained perspective. I'd been betrayed, but found strength I didn't know I had. And through it all, I'd kept the one thing that truly mattered, my daughter. Sometimes, when I wake up at 2:45 a.m. to head to the bakery, I think about that party. Maria's mocking words, the guests' uncomfortable laughter, the humiliation I felt. And I smile. Because that moment, as painful as it was, became the catalyst for my transformation. I'm not the man she mocked anymore. I'm stronger, healthier, happier. I'm a successful business owner, a devoted father, and a man who knows his worth. And Maria? She's still paying off her debts, still living in that tiny room, still dealing with the consequences of her choices. The best revenge isn't just moving on. It's thriving. It's building a life so much better than what you lost that you realize you didn't lose anything at all. You gained everything. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.